Okay, we've talked about the dominant ISFJ subtype. We've talked about the creative ISFJ, the normalizing ISFJ. Now let's talk about the harmonizing ISFJ subtype.
Right. Okay, so this is going to be one of the furthest away from the stereotype, perhaps. Maybe not. I think we tend to attract a lot of harmonizing ISFJs. That's my guess. And so you listening, if you are an ISFJ, this might be your subtype. And harmonizing, not always, but harmonizing subtypes tend to be older, right? Not the rule of thumb, but sort of the observation has been that creative subtypes tend to be younger, not always, but they tend to be younger, and harmonizing tend to be older. And then it's kind of a mixed bag with the dominant and the normalizing. So harmonizing ISFJs are gifted, humanistic, and notably sensitive. They are very tapped into whatever's the human dimension of something, and they have deep concern for that. And they work really well one-on-one. Right, they're not group, they're not the PR agents that are going to be the representative spokesperson for, a company like the dominant might be. This is the opposite of that. This is a more intimate one-to-one relationship style of ISFJ. But they are usually good at blending sort of this artistic and technical side into specializing or becoming a specialist around something. And the challenge with talking about any harmonizing type is that they're usually very specialized, right? Like one ISFJ that's a harmonizing subtype might look kind of different from another, depending upon what they have chosen to focus upon. But some typical things, right? Like not all of them, but some typical characteristics of a harmonizing ISFJ is sort of the ability to process social feedback in an open-ended way. So kind of understanding where the person is coming from and really meeting them where they're at and understanding the implications of what they're talking about. Also being able to think in a holistic way by attending or when attending to people's vocal tonality, their facial expressions, really kind of honing in on an individual and understanding what that might mean holistically for them. And then also it's very common for harmonizing ISFJs to have really good visual artistic skills. So unlike the creative that tends towards auditory, right, music, this is a style that when the creative, they tend towards the visual. Not always, but it's a trend, not a rule. And generally they're good at seeing possibilities. So they have a little bit of that starburst, but they're not good at making decisions at all. And so they don't always know what to do with the information that they're ruminating upon. They tend to have very keen minds. They're comfortable with complexity. In fact, they might even kind of enjoy complexity. And they are, very good at bringing sort of a philosophical, sensitive, vulnerable expression to situations to help diffuse them. So they're not aggressive, they're not assertive, they're not like making things happen, but when they show up, there's a kind of a magic about them that helps navigate through situations. But if they're in unfamiliar situations where they are expected to make choices or perform, they can feel very awkward, very exposed. They hate being forced to make any choice, right? So it's one of those things where they kind of have to show up and express magic as opposed to being sort of forced to do it, if that makes sense. So when choosing careers, there's going to be things that follow those trends. So counseling is a big one, right? Like any form of counselor is usually very popular with this kind of style. But things also like film editors is on the list, portrait painters, media interviewer, maybe not the PR person, but somebody who's interviewing another person and really pulling out a lot of great content from them. But art therapist is on the list, UX designer, so user experience designer, somebody who's really getting inside of like somebody else's experience and tailoring it to them and really understanding how a user wants to interact with a product. I've also got on here museum curator, personal care aide, and archivist. These would all be probably really good suiting this style of ISFJ.
Yeah, what I'm noticing is they're probably the most likely to show up intuitive. Like they would be mistaken for an intuitive often.
Yeah.
Because of just how much they're attuned to the woo-woo of everything, I guess is the best way to say it. That's maybe not a technical way to say it, but
Well, I think that they are going to have less strong opinions about how things all should be set up. They're a lot more receptive,
Yeah.
a lot more kind of sort of, just accept what's happening and do their part in showing concern for the situation. But they don't have probably a lot of very definitive opinions on how everything needs to be set up.
yeah.
And they also enjoy complexity. And so they might mistype as an INFP as well. But also, I think this is probably the type that's most likely to think that they have INFJ preferences.
Yeah. So when we talked about the dominant subtype of ISFJ, we talked about possible leadership opportunities to take the lead, to be in management, take charge of a situation. We talked about the creative subtype being platform oriented, like YouTube, Uber. It doesn't have to be, but these are some tendencies for career tracks. The normalizing, getting a job is probably a very beneficial opportunity for a normalizing ISFJ.
Yeah, just about anything they can figure out.
Yeah, and by the way, all these are trends, and these are just some general things. But harmonizing, it sounds like the network of people you're tapped into.
Yeah.
That not just the people you associate with, but they have to be able to see your value, your nuanced value as a harmonizing ISFJ, because you're not out there promoting yourself of like, hey, I've got this value to contribute to other people. So getting yourself into a network of people, a tribe, a community of people that know what you bring to the table. Now they can help put you forward and bring you to those opportunities, quote unquote, market you in a way.
Yeah.
I think that's really a key here. If you identify with this harmonizing, you might want to choose careers that allow you to connect with people that can help augment your value and bring you forward into the world.
Yeah. And something that requires like good taste,
Yeah.
right? Something that not everybody can do, because you have to have this really interesting intersection of skills
Yeah.
that requires like refinement.
Complex coordination.
Like the refinement and the good taste and the ability to come in and sort of observe
Yeah.
a situation and know what it needs in order to make it beautiful, or
Yeah.
what this person needs in order to feel heard. So it's hard in a situation where like it's real competitive and everybody's like, like this would not be somebody who's vying for salesperson of the month, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not the situation that is really going to bring out their best. It's more like a situation where like, I almost think of like this type would make a very good sommelier, right? Like something that is hard to do, takes a lot of time and dedication and refinement and heightened senses and
Yeah.
right. Like something that really like you have to really have good taste. So finding whatever is the sommelier version of your industry, of the thing that you enjoy, what is something that like just most people can't do, because
Yeah.
it just requires so much refinement and so much taste and so much skill and patience development over time. And then it's not something where you have to necessarily sell yourself. You're one of the few people who has that capacity.
Yeah. From a neurotransmitter standpoint, the harmonizing ISFJ favors estrogen. And let's talk about those two front functions: introverted sensing memory, extroverted feeling harmony. How are they attuned for this subtype?
So in the harmonizing subtype, they both have holistic bent. So both introverted sensing memory and extroverted feeling or harmony, both of them are more receptive, more open,
Yeah.
more sort of taking it as it's coming and understanding the bigger picture, as opposed to being more targeted and assertive and having blinders on. So this is an ISFJ that, if they let themselves, becomes just almost like a bird of paradise in what they can do. The challenge is that they're going to have maybe some difficulty with assertiveness and, like you said, selling themselves or finding those opportunities. So they're going to have to, they're going to have to take this thing that they know how to do and figure out a way to like interface it with the world.